Hello and welcome back to Gay by Gay. Woo!
So, true crime.
Yes.
I enjoy it.
And,
do you enjoy true crime?
I enjoy it. Sometimes I do feel bad because there's some, I feel like discourse within true crime where it's it places a lot of fame and popularity onto the perpetrators when there shouldn't be. You know, how,
In a lot of cases, we do definitely define crimes more by the person that perpetrated it rather than the victim. For example, if you think of the Chris Watts case, it's not the Shanann Watts case who was the victim. It's Chris Watts who was the killer. And I'm kind of like, why are we giving him the fame and the attention? Yeah. It should be about the victim.
Yeah.
Although there are other cases, now that you mention it, I feel like when a crime is solved, it becomes about the killer.
Yeah.
I feel like when a crime is unsolved, obviously you can't make it about the killer, so it becomes more about the victim. For example, the Madeleine McCann case or the JonBenet Ramsey case, where we don't know what happened, so,
Yeah, that's true.
But I do feel like that is something that is a little bit unfortunate about the true crime community, is that we do definitely have a tendency to focus more on the perpetrator than the victim, which
I think so.
is kind of a negative.
Yeah, and I think there's also, some ways where with that popularity comes kind of, where people will get, death threats to their family or,
And you know what? I have never approved of anything like that, where I'm like, you know what? You can feel a certain way about things, but at no point would I ever say you should reach out to the family. Even if, it's one of those things. The Chris Watts case.
Yeah.
It made me very angry because while we were up at our cabin 2 weeks ago, you, Charlie, and I watched the Chris Watts documentary.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. A Family Paradise?
It's
Paradise
an American Murder.
Something.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. And, I got very angry at one point because when people were standing up to make their victim statements, Chris's parents got up and said, "Oh, we forgive you, son." And as I said to you, it did make me very angry because part of me admits, you know what? Yes, this is their son. But part of me also says he killed his two young daughters and his pregnant wife because he wanted them out of the way for his girlfriend.
It's terrible.
And I'm sorry, you don't get to look at them after Shanann's family got up and made their statement because they lost their daughter and their grandkids and their unborn grandchild. For them to get up in that same courtroom, turn around and go, "We forgive you, son."
It's terrible.
It made me very hollow.
If you want to...
I understand it, but I don't understand it.
If you want to say that, say it in private. Don't say it in front of grieving people.
And even then, because I'm just kind of left sitting there going, well, I guess... Part of me says that, yes, it is up to them to forgive him because those were also their grandchildren. Yeah. But ultimately, knowing that Shanann's family was there...
Yeah, don't do it like that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, you know what? No. Or it's even the Casey Anthony case where, yes, she was acquitted. I'm sorry, not sorry. I am still of the mind that she allegedly killed her daughter. I do very much feel like her parents came out over and over and said, she's innocent, she's innocent, she's innocent. I can understand as a parent not wanting to believe the worst in your child, but there just have to be sometimes that reality smacks you between the eyes and you say, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
This is not the child that I know. This is not. I mean, hell, there are so many serial killers out there, and the people are like, oh, he was the guy next door. He seemed really nice.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy, anybody?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But what we're actually going to be talking about today is another docuseries that we watched, Making a Murderer.
Yes, we are so far removed from the party that happened with it.
I know.
It came out in 2016, 2015?
2015, I think. And it is still ongoing to this day as far as I know. We really don't want to spoil anything for anybody, so this is the part where I'm going to tell all of you that we are going to be discussing season 1 in particular. I think I've watched the first 2 episodes of season 2. I think you've watched, the first 3, first 4?
I think I'm on 4 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say anything about it.
So we are specifically going to be covering everything that happened in season 1. And when I say covering, I'm not going to sit here and, we're not going to give you, a play-by-play of everything that happened.
We're just going to talk about it.
We're just going to generally talk about how we felt, how we're thinking about it, and everything else. So if you don't want spoilers, I would suggest tapping out. There are a bunch of other episodes that you could listen to.
Yeah.
If you don't want spoilers, this is not the one for you. If you've already seen it and have your own opinions, we would love to talk.
Yeah.
Love to, because y'all know at this point I'm super into true crime and everything else. You want to talk? Let's talk. But that being said, let's go ahead and kind of start getting into this. So the question on everybody's mind after first watching the documentary, do you think that Steven Avery and his nephew committed this crime? That they are alleged to... Actually, I shouldn't even say that they are alleged to have committed. They were convicted of it.
Yeah.
Do you also believe that they did it?
I don't think that they did it.
You don't?
I don't think that they did it because...
Because the nephew is Brendan Dassey.
Dassey.
I don't know why I always want to put a B in his name. I don't know. Like, I've literally watched it with you, and my brain is still like, B? Brendan Dassey, though, I feel like
he definitely didn't do anything.
No. Absolutely. 100% no.
I feel so bad for that guy.
Yeah, I feel very bad.
Yeah.
Steven Avery.
Do I think he did it? I don't really think he did it because, like, I feel after so long sitting in a jail cell, you would just kind of, like, admit to doing it if you did it. Or, like, that thing where he knows what jail is like. Mm-hmm. Why would he sit there and affirm his innocence when he knows that if he pleads guilty, he'll get less time? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like you can't sit there with that kind of brain to know that you did that and, like, live. Like, he doesn't seem like sociopathic or anything that he wouldn't feel that kind of emotions.
No, and he also doesn't seem to have... This sounds a little odd. He doesn't seem to have the charisma that I would expect
he doesn't,
a psychopath or a sociopath to have.
He doesn't seem all that arrogant.
No, and I feel like in a lot of cases we do see that with killers where they are very articulate, they are very well-spoken, they tend to be kind of more well-groomed and everything else. Like you think about some of those serial killers, and I'm not saying he wasn't charged with any sort of serial crime. Yeah. But I definitely feel like he doesn't really show any of that sort of charisma that I would expect from a hidden killer. Mm-hmm. That being said, the guy next door is always capable of it.
Yeah. Like, it's just so... I don't know. I feel like, first of all, with his first conviction, it shouldn't have taken them 18 years to get him out of there.
I mean, it's a little bit tough because, they did have to wait for DNA evidence to get to the point that they could actually test it. But I know that DNA testing was around for quite a while by the time they finally got to it. The trouble is with stuff like that, it does take time, it does take resources to get these things tested. And so when you have current crimes that are going on that you still have a chance of solving right away, those kind of do take precedence over the cold cases. That being said, 18 years, that's a ridiculous amount of time to be stolen.
And there wasn't any evidence linking him to the crime.
And just in case you guys don't know what we're talking about, maybe you haven't seen Making a Murderer and don't care about spoilers. Yeah. Steven Avery was convicted. I need to be committed. Yeah. He was convicted of a rape attack on a young woman on a beach in Manitowoc County. Yeah. He maintained his innocence the entire way along, said, I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of very questionable things leading up to even his conviction there. For example, one of the biggest things to me was that when you look at the police sketch that was drawn up, supposedly from Penny, who was the victim. Yeah. She supposedly sat down with the sketch artist to do it. But the thing is, when you look at her written statement and you look at the
drawing,
they are not at all similar.
Yeah.
On top of that, the drawing does not at all resemble Steven Avery as he was at that time. It resembles an old mugshot of him from when he had been convicted of a burglary a few years prior. Yeah. So I do find it very odd that, the description didn't match. Yeah. The picture didn't match what he currently looked like, but it looked eerily similar to his old mugshot. Yeah. And, it was even asked of the artist who drew it, where it was like, did you use this as a reference? Yeah. Because it's almost identical. And he goes, no, I drew that from the description. And I'm like, there's no way you did.
Yeah.
Because the eyes were a different color. The hair was completely different. Yeah. And in the old mugshot, he had curly hair. When he was picked up, he had like straight, almost platinum blonde hair. Like, not even similar. So I'm like, what the hell?
You know what makes me the most mad? How different officers in the unit are. I don't know how law enforcement works. But where they told the people who arrested Steven Avery, well, we have another kind of criminal who has like a similar MO. They're doing this sort of stuff.
Has committed a crime similar to this before.
And it also might be that guy. And they didn't even put that guy in the lineup.
Nope. They just went with Steven.
That makes me mad.
And the thing that I won't deny is that Steven did look similar at the time to the guy who actually did commit the offense. So I can't give that, like, I can't put that on Penny and say, how could you have made that mistake? Because the two men did look similar. Yeah. But they didn't even have the real criminal. They should have had them on the radar. People brought it to, the attention of the sheriff, and they just went, nope, this is our guy. So sure enough, Steven Avery is eventually freed from jail. He is exonerated by DNA evidence, and the other guy is convicted by that same DNA evidence. And so he is out for about a year. Now, Steven Avery launches into a whole bunch of campaigning to get rules changed and everything, like the Innocence Project and everything else going. There are a lot of innocent people that are sitting in jails for crimes they didn't do. We need to help them. We need to do something to fix law enforcement because they singled me out when I didn't do this crime, and I lost 18 years of my life.
He did that lawsuit and got a whole bunch of money.
I was going to say, so here's where it starts to get interesting. Steven Avery files a lawsuit against, I think he originally tried to file the lawsuit against Manitowoc County, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, the county has insurance. Believe it or not, that is the thing that exists. And so the insurance said that they could not be held culpable, but people individually could. So that meant the sheriff and everybody else who, helped convict him was on the line because they screwed up big time. So all of these people were on the line. And I think at the time he had been asking for a couple $1 million.
Yeah, a lot of money.
I know eventually it worked its way down to, I think, around $400,000 or something like that. But at the time he was asking for millions. They were actually in the middle of, the word escapes me. Oh dear, not their testimonies.
Testifying?
No. The part where they all have to sit down and kind of go over...
Negotiate?
The crime again.
I don't know.
I can't remember the word. I feel like it starts with a D. My brain is like...
Deliberate?
No, not in the courtroom. Where they all brought them back in afterwards. You remember they were doing all the series of interviews and everything else to see how much of a part everybody had played in the wrongful
investigation?
Conviction? Kind of. I don't know. The word will come to me at some point, and I'm sure I'll just shout it out randomly at some point. But they kind of all sat down, and basically they were evaluating how much everybody had, like what everyone's role was. And obviously these people were going to have to pay for this. They weren't insured by the county. They would have to pay out of pocket for the damages done to Steven Avery. So this is kind of where things start to get complicated. All of a sudden, a new young woman goes missing. It is known that she was on the Steven property taking a picture of some old cars that I guess were for sale or something like that. So she goes missing, and eventually her car is found on Steven Avery's property because he works and owns a junkyard with his family. So this vehicle is found there, and already I have a lot of questions about the way it was found. I know Charlie took one video in particular while we were watching it because at one point the defense attorney asks one of the guys involved. Okay, so to kind of explain just really quickly what was going on with the car. These two women had found it. It was like a mother and a daughter, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a search party. And,
but it was just these two women. Those two in particular, they were the only two members of the search party that broke off to be given a camera. No other searchers had a camera or anything even similar to it. They knew what make and model they were looking for. It was a RAV4, which was the victim's car. I found it very interesting. The junkyard was 40 acres.
Big, huge.
And they basically made a beeline straight to where the RAV4 was.
They found it within 10 minutes.
They found it within 10 minutes. 40 acres, and they found it within 10 minutes. Lady says she was led to it by God. I am much more likely to think that somebody told her where she might be able to find it. So, of course, she calls it in, and, she starts asking, well, is this the car? Is this the car? Yada, yada, yada. It comes out a little bit later that I guess there had been a conversation beforehand where there was someone else who had called in the sighting of a similar vehicle, and they had asked, is it this color, and is it this make and this model and this year and everything else, and they kind of read out the license plate. And I guess the defense attorney at one point said to the officer that had called it in, it was like, how could you have known the license plate and everything, because you shouldn't have known that. So how could you have known that if you weren't looking at it? Were you looking at that car, sir? And he goes, no, sir, I was not.
While he was calling it the
he literally goes, I didn't say that. Like, it literally plays out exactly what he said. And he said, were you looking at the car? And he goes, no, sir. And the defense attorney just looks so shocked. Like, he sits there open mouth and just blinks at him. And it was an amazing moment. It was really funny. But it's just one of those things, like, it was a whole lot of stuff like that where things just weren't adding up. And even some of the calls that were made.
They were just suspicious.
For example, they didn't even have a warrant at the time. Yeah. But there was a police call that was made asking if Avery was already in custody. Yeah. They didn't even know. They knew they had a missing person, but they didn't have any evidence that she was on Avery's property at that time.
Not to mention that they searched, like, his trailer, 18 times?
I think it was said in the documentary 18 times.
God.
I have never seen or heard anything like it.
Yeah, not at all.
Never.
It's just so suspicious.
I wouldn't say that I'm a voracious consumer of true crime content, but I do kind of, I am versed in it, not well-versed necessarily, but I am kind of versed in it. I have never heard of police needing to do 18
sweeps.
Yeah. And that entire time, it was, there was a lot of suspicious stuff going on, just where no one found any sort of proof. Everything was torn apart, moved. And, originally, they did not have Manitowoc County in on this. They did not have their investigators.
Because it's a conflict of interest.
They had, Calumet County, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. No evidence was ever found until suddenly 2 Manitowoc County investigators went to do yet another sweep, and then all of a sudden, incriminating pieces of evidence were found.
Yeah. Stupid.
Not smart. Yeah. And even then, even on some of that evidence, it was said that it was the victim's car key that was found. Yeah. And only Steven Avery's DNA was on it. None of hers. She's had this car for how long? It's her key and everything else. Even if he had grabbed it and everything, that doesn't erase her DNA from being on it.
There should have been a mixture.
Exactly. Yeah. So I did find it very odd that only his DNA was on it.
Well, we should take a break, and then we'll come back with more suspicious activity in this case. Hello, and welcome back to Gay by Gay.
Woo! So, making a murderer.
Yeah, there was just so much suspicious activity that, causes you to take this kind of second look and be like, this isn't as it seems, basically. And I felt it was really insulting that even, the judge and, the prosecutors, the state side of the lawyers were like, oh, but, nothing is planted. Nothing is happening. It just felt so, unbelievable.
I mean, obviously they're not going to admit to it.
I know.
I mean, it's alleged that they did because it wasn't proven that they did, but, I mean, if you did, you're not going to admit to it, so I'm not surprised. That being said, there were so many things in this case in particular that made me kind of shocked. Yeah. For example, kind of talking about Dassey here for a second, Brendan Dassey, who was later brought in because he made a statement to the police explaining what must have happened with his uncle. So, I have a lot of problems with what happened here. I'm just going to preface this by saying that the judge, I was shocked about this decision. I guess the defense counsel had brought it up to the judge and said, we should probably get this thrown out, this, evidence of, him confessing because it's questionable. And the judge ruled to take it out. Yeah. But later it was brought up in court and used against him, which I was very confused about how that was even possible. Yeah. Maybe I misunderstood something, but I was very confused.
But that was so sad because, Brendan was 16 at the time. They kind of targeted him because he was supposed to be Steven's alibi because they, seen each other.
They had seen each other, so he was Steven's alibi.
Yeah, they were having a bonfire together. Yep. But they target this kid, and he...
we gotta be gentle with this. He may have been 16, but if you were to listen to him speak and, kind of observe his mannerisms, it is very clear that he is handicapped.
Intellectually disabled.
A little bit, yes. I think they said at one point that his IQ was only around a 73 or something. I think that they had some testing done and that they had shown that at one point. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember seeing. Yeah. 73. To explain, I don't know when the last time you took...
Never.
You've never taken a test? Oh. Last time I took a test, I want to say that I was up around... I think they barred me at around like 148 to 155 IQ. So you have to think that that's literally less than half of my IQ. And that is very scary because I'm left sitting here like, I think they had said that was the equivalent of like what, like a fourth grade, third grade level?
Yeah.
Something like that. That's the mental capacity of like a 7 to 8 year old.
But he's very trusting. Doesn't really understand what's going on.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. You can tell that he has no idea. And as I said to you and Charlie, I was shocked that this entire case was not thrown out or, because we've seen in other criminal cases where you can plead that you don't understand what's going on around you. Like you can't understand, so when your counsel advises you, you don't understand what the charges against you are. You don't understand, kind of what's going on around you. You don't understand the proceedings. You can be declared as unfit to stand trial.
Yeah.
I have no idea how Brendan Dassey was not declared unfit to stand trial.
I know.
He had no idea what was happening for the most part. I think he understood the charge of murder, but I don't think he understood at all what was going on around him.
Yeah.
He was clueless, and I have no idea how they made the determination to push ahead with the trial.
And I feel like what the investigators did to him was absolutely disgusting, honestly.
If you watch the video where he gives his first confession, Brendan never says, at least what was shown in the documentary, because, there was a lot of questions about how the documentary was one-sided or biased or whatever.
Yeah.
I did find it very interesting, though. If you watch the footage that the documentary showed, there could be more. I don't know. If you watch it, Brendan Dassey never actually gives any sort of detail without a lot of hand-holding and leading from the two investigators interviewing him.
Yeah.
For example, there's one moment that stands out in particular to me where they're asking him, we know what happened, Brendan, we know what happened. Tell us, what did Steven Avery do? What did he do? What did he do?
Yeah.
And, Brendan goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the investigators go, something to do with her head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, already right there, that interview should have been stopped and thrown out because that is leading a witness.
Yeah.
That is leading a witness. That's saying something to do with this.
Yeah.
Even if you want to leave it in, Brendan's first response is,
we cut her hair.
We cut her hair.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think what the investigators were getting at was that the victim was shot twice in the head.
Yeah.
If you had witnessed this, is your first instinct, and let's be real here, as someone with a lower IQ and everything else, you're going to say the truth. Like, you're not going to have the mental capacity to be like, oh, I shouldn't tell them that.
Yeah.
I feel like that you would have blurted that out unintentionally.
Yeah.
You would have been like, oh, yeah, we did shoot her in the head. Yeah. He says, we cut her hair.
Yeah.
And the investigator goes, and what else?
Yeah.
And already I'm sitting here like,
what?
That's not right.
Yeah.
And then the next thing Brendan says is, we punched her. And the investigator goes, okay, and what else?
Yeah.
Something to do with her head. Come on, something to do with her head. And, like, you can see...
He's guessing.
100% that this kid is guessing.
Yeah.
Because every single time he does what I like to refer to as check back.
Yeah.
Working with kids myself, whenever I ask a student a question, if a student is confident in their answer, they will normally make eye contact with you or they will continue doing what they're doing. When a child is unsure of their answer, they will do what I refer to as a check back. So basically, if I ask a question of, should you point your toes or should you flex your toes?
Yeah.
If a child is unsure of the answer is always point your toes. If a child is unsure of the answer, they're going to say something along the lines of, point your feet?
Yeah.
Number one, the response is going to be phrased as a question.
Yeah.
Number two, the child is going to look at me to see my reaction. They're going to see if I am smiling, if I am frowning. It's their way of reaffirming whether or not they are correct.
Yeah.
It's natural for a child to look for reassurance when they're unsure of something. And knowing that Brendan Dassey had the mental capabilities of about an 8-year-old, it doesn't surprise me that in this case, every single time he gave a response to one of the investigators, he did a check back. You can see him because he sits there for the most part, kind of slouched over because you can tell he's nervous.
Yeah.
And he's looking down. Whenever he gives one of the responses, he will look up at the investigators, and then the second he sees that they're unhappy with his answer, he will look back down again. And he will keep thinking. He'll go, what else do they want from me? What else do they want from me? I have no idea how this could have been used as evidence.
they only phrased their praise when they thought what he was telling them was true, and only the stuff that they wanted to hear was true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because the number of times he goes, I didn't do it,
Yeah.
I didn't say that, I didn't, no. And then it's basically, we know you're lying, you're lying. You know, if you want us to help us, you're going to tell us the truth.
Yeah.
You're going to tell us the truth. And obviously they very much kind of bullied and pushed him and coerced him into saying their version of the truth.
Yeah.
The version that would match up with the evidence that they had or had planted, whichever way you want to see that.
And they always told him, like, oh yeah, you're gonna be fine, like you're not
doing the right thing. We can help you.
You're gonna be okay. Like, yeah, you're
only if you tell the truth will you be okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I think Brendan even says at one point that he was under the impression that he was going to be going back to school after the interview.
Yeah.
That was the impression he had been left with from the investigators, where it's like, if you tell us the truth, we'll help you. We'll be your friend.
Yeah.
And to an 8-year-old looking at law enforcement, when a law enforcement officer says, tell us what we want to hear and we will help you. We will be your friend.
Yeah.
He said whatever they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, even if you take a look at something like the Reykjavik confessions, where basically several people were left in solitary isolation for days. And when I say days, I mean, I think one of the people was left in for something like over 1,100 days. I think it was around 1,400 days of isolation.
Yeah, that's, like, bad.
And basically, by the end of it, the idea was that these people were so broken down that they were willing to say anything to just make it stop.
Yeah.
They were willing to throw themselves under the bus. They were willing to confess to anything. Hell, their brains had even started questioning themselves, going, did I see something? Did I do something?
Yeah.
They didn't even know anymore because they had been so mentally broken.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that with Brendan Dassey.
And it's really, really sad because, like, he's just a kid. Like,
he's 16, but with the mental capacity of someone much younger.
Yeah.
Like, he had no idea. And I found it very interesting that they would not let his lawyer sit with him.
No.
Because if a lawyer had been in there, they would have defended him and said, you can't do that. You can't say that.
His appointed lawyer declined to be there.
And they did not let his mother be there. And now there's a bit of a discrepancy here because they're saying we invited the mother. She said no. Mom says, I wanted to be in there. But they wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more inclined, just watching the mother's behavior, I'm a little bit more inclined to believe Barb on that one, who's the mother. Yeah. Just because you can see she's definitely more of like a bit of a hound dog. Yeah. Like she wanted to be there every single step of the way. I can't ever see her saying, yeah, no, take him. Yeah. I can't see that.
Not at all.
So I very much do believe her story when she says they wouldn't let me be there.
Yeah.
Especially because you can see at one point they let her in and she actually questions them. She says, what have you been saying to him? Have you been forcing him to say things? Have you been bullying him? Yeah. Because she can see in her own child. He even says at one point, like, they made me say things. Yeah. And it's like, it was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, and as I said, like...
It's so horrible.
You can see. His story, every time he was forced to give a new confession, changed every single time. The only thing that stayed true and consistent throughout was every time he reverted back to the story of being innocent and his original timeline.
That one stayed the same.
That was the only thing that stayed the same. Yeah. And for a kid that doesn't have a lot of mental capacity, he obviously couldn't remember any of the lies he had been forced to tell. But the fact that every single time he went back to that same story with accuracy tells me that that is probably the truth because it's what he actually remembers. He can't remember the lie, but he can remember what really happened. And I think that was huge. And the fact that, putting it, as I said, at the end of season 1, we know that both Steven Avery and his nephew were convicted. Yeah. I was shocked.
Me too.
I was shocked.
I know.
There should have been no way.
I know.
Even if, you could argue, even if Steven Avery did something. Yeah. Because, as I said, I'm going to sit here and take the line of, do I think he did something? No. Yeah. Just because it doesn't make sense to me, the fact that he was in jail for 18 years. He's literally about to come into all this money through all these lawsuits and everything else. Why is he going to kill a girl on his property? What? Why? Yeah. But there's no way. Any of the things that Brendan Dassey said should have been thrown out, and he never should have been convicted, especially because at one point he says that they cut the throat of the victim in the bedroom, where apparently she was tied down and everything else. Horrific. Yeah. Except when you look at it, there's no blood spatter in the room. There was no blood spatter on the mattress. There was no nothing. And you have to think that if someone's throat has been cut, because it was said that they burned the victim in a burn pit afterwards, even then you have to think that there's going to be a blood trail from someone's throat who's been cut. It's going to be on the walls. It's going to be on the
everywhere.
Ceiling. And let's be real here. This was a junkyard. You're telling me that they took every single piece of junk and scrubbed it down with bleach?
It just doesn't make sense.
No.
None of it makes sense. And that's the most, like, disturbing part of it. How this can all, like, not make sense and he is still convicted. Both of them.
You can absolutely 100% see, in my opinion, don't come for me, in my opinion, that the county was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because Steven Avery got out and they had been wrong about his 18-year conviction. They were embarrassed. They were being sued, some of them.
Yeah.
And I think they were willing to do whatever it took to get him back in jail. And see, we told you he was bad, dude. See, didn't we tell you we were right? We were right. It was a good thing we put him away.
I just want people to know something. And that's, I hate Ken Kratz.
He made me very angry.
Oh my
His
God.
smug attitude.
The press conference. Right after Brendan gave his confession, the prosecutor for Steven Avery's case and Brendan Dassey's case held a press conference releasing all of the details of Brendan's confession as if that it was, like, not alleged, that it was for sure.
And it is one of those things.
And it was dramatic and terrible.
I think in the last episode that we posted about aliens, I was talking about my friend C, how we had come up with, like, this whole theory about aliens and everything else. If you haven't heard it, you should go listen to it. It's funny. But he is actually working his way into being a police officer. He has told me before, it is ridiculous the amount of walks that perpetrators get because everything has to be phrased very specifically. If you phrase one thing wrong on one piece of paperwork, or if you say one thing wrong in court, they will walk. He said it is insanely hard to get a conviction. The fact that Ken Kratz was able to come out, give all of the details on Brendan's, in my opinion, forced confession, and at no point did he say allegedly.
Yeah, not at all.
That is what had happened. He said it as if it was a fact, and sorry, not sorry, I don't think there was any way they were ever going to get a fair trial in Manitowoc County.
I don't think so.
Trial by media.
Yeah.
We've seen it before where, you know, if the public decides that you are guilty because that's the way the media phrases it, how are you ever going to get a jury?
You're not.
That isn't biased.
You're not.
So, you know, they're releasing these things as if it's hard, cold fact that that's what he did. When, again, I didn't see any evidence that that is what had happened.
I know.
The interview to me and the confession were obviously coerced and forced. So I'm just left sitting here going, the fact that he got up at a press conference and said that, you know, that's what happened as a fact. We know this happened and we know that happened. And I said, where's your evidence? And on top of that, you didn't just allege that. So now he's not been convicted yet, but you are talking to the media and to the public as if it's already a done deal. There was no way they were ever going to get off. And even then, the judges, so many questionable decisions where things should have been either taken into evidence or thrown out completely, and they weren't. They were against the entire time.
Yeah.
And as I said, knowing that all of this stuff had happened with Steven Avery having gotten out before, I don't think they ever should have been tried in Manitowoc County.
No, not at all.
They should have been taken somewhere else to be tried. The whole thing makes me quite frustrated, yes.
Oh, Lordy.
But if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend watching it.
Check it out. It's actually really good.
It's really good.
It's really good.
It's quite involving, honestly. I remember we had kind of taken a bit of a break after watching, I think, the first episode.
Yeah.
We were all so excited to get back into it the next day. Like,
it's very interesting.
It's
There's
very
a lot
engaging.
of information,
There's a lot. And honestly, we can't cover everything here. There is so much. I mean, the first season of the docuseries has, 10 episodes, and they're each an hour long? 10 hours worth of, court documents and evidence.
And that's not the whole thing. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Good. So we definitely can't cover it all here. I would definitely recommend doing some more research on the case, watching the documentary. Yeah. And as I said, there have been allegations that the documentary was one-sided. Yeah. Could I see that? Yes. Yeah. That being said, I also look at a lot of the things that kind of happen, and I'm like, that's not one-sided. Those things obviously happened during a press conference. You can't hide it. Especially
that's on
everything,
video.
Everything else that came out about Ken Kratz after, very angry.
Yeah.
Very angry.
Oh my God.
But instead of being angry, I'm just going to say thank you so much for listening. Make sure to check us out on all of our social media. Make sure to share if you think it's worth a share, because it means the world to us. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a like. It really does make a difference. Check out our vlogs every single Saturday. And we will talk at you in the next episode.
Yes, take it gay by gay guys.
Bye.